The Galactic Council had grown comfortable in their superiority. For 3 centuries, they had watched the humans with the same detached interest. One might observe insects building their hills, amusing, perhaps even clever in their limited way, but ultimately inconsequential. The humans had been permitted exactly 7 colonies beyond their home system, a generous allowance for such a young species. The Zephyrians controlled 43 systems. The crystalline Vorthak dominated 67. Even the diminutive Kalari, barely larger than human children, governed 21 worlds. 7 colonies seemed appropriately humble for the galactic newcomers. When New Terra went silent, the Council barely noticed. Probably another one of their primitive communication failures, sneered Ambassador Zektar, his chitinous plates clicking with disdain. These mammals and their fragile technology. The report was filed under minor colonial disruptions and forgotten. 3 days later, when the automated cargo vessel Prosperity failed to return from its scheduled supply run to New Terra, eyebrows, or their alien equivalents, began to raise. When the search vessel Galactic Horizon also vanished without a trace, the Council convened an emergency session. "We should investigate," suggested Counselor Vexhai, her crystalline form shimmering with concern. "2 ships lost is unprecedented." "Send the humans," Zektar waved a dismissive claw. "Let them clean up their own mess." So they contacted Earth. The human representative, Ambassador Chen, listened to their report with an expression of stone. When they finished, she spoke just 4 words. "We'll handle this." The Council expected a small investigation team, perhaps a single human vessel bumbling around their lost colony. What they got was the emergence of 17 ships from Earth's direction, ships that registered on sensors like nothing they had ever seen. "Those energy signatures," whispered Chief Analyst Mordun, his tentacles trembling as he studied the readings. "They're impossible. What power source could generate such output?" The human fleet moved with predatory efficiency toward New Terra. No unnecessary communications, no requests for assistance or permission. They simply came. On the 4th day, fragments of information began filtering back to the Council through civilian channels, merchant vessels, and deep space monitoring stations. What they heard defied belief. The threat that had consumed New Terra, that had destroyed 2 Galactic Council vessels without leaving so much as debris, was gone. Not defeated, erased. The entire system had been sterilized with a thoroughness that chilled the blood of species across the galaxy. But it was what the merchant captain Johanna reported that truly shook the Council. "I was 3 systems away when the humans finished," she testified, her vocal sacs quivering. "The energy discharge. It lit up sensors across half the sector. When I arrived to investigate, the system was clean. Not just the threat, everything. Asteroids gone. Space dust settled. Even the cosmic background radiation had been reset to baseline levels." "And the humans?" demanded Zektar. "Gone, but before they left, they transmitted a message on all frequencies." Johanna's skin shifted to deep purple, a color of profound fear among her species. It was in perfect galactic standard addressed to all concerned parties. It simply said, "Issue resolved. Colony reconstruction begins in 6 months. We recommend avoiding this system until then." The silence in the Council chambers was deafening. "What?" Counselor Vexhai finally managed. "Were they before they came to the galaxy?" The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Suddenly, humanity's remarkable adaptability, their rapid technological advancement, their unsettling comfort with violence, it all took on new meaning. Ambassador Zektar, who had spent decades mocking human primitiveness, found his voice caught in his throat. "We assumed they were a young species because they only recently developed faster than light travel." "What if," Vexhai continued slowly, "they're not young? What if they're just careful?" The implications crashed over the Council like a tidal wave. A species that could obliterate threats at the molecular level, a species that could reconstruct entire worlds, a species that had been deliberately limiting its expansion, perhaps to avoid attracting attention, until something forced their hand. Within hours, intelligence agencies across the galaxy began frantically reassessing everything they knew about humanity. The picture that emerged was terrifying. Humans didn't just adapt to hostile environments, they terraformed worlds in decades that should have taken millennia. They didn't just develop technology, They reverse-engineered and improved upon designs they'd seen once. They didn't just fight wars, they won them so decisively that their enemies simply ceased to exist. And they had been hiding this capability for 300 years. When the human fleet returned to Earth, every major intelligence network in the galaxy was watching. The ships that had effortlessly cleansed an entire system settled into orbit around the human homeworld like sleeping giants. Business as usual. Nothing to see here, but the galaxy had seen. Within a month, humanity received 47 formal diplomatic overtures, 16 trade proposals, and 9 requests for military consultation. The Kalari, masters of galactic economics, offered exclusive shipping contracts. The Vorthak, who hadn't spoken to a lesser species in 2 centuries, requested cultural exchange programs. Ambassador Chen accepted them all with the same stone-faced courtesy she had shown during the crisis. The age of humanity's permitted expansion was over. Now, when humans submitted colony applications, they were approved without question. When human ships requested passage through sovereign space, clearance was granted immediately. When human representatives spoke in council sessions, the galaxy listened. Because everyone now understood a simple truth. Humans weren't the galaxy's newest members. They were its apex predators, and they had been patiently waiting for an excuse to remind everyone of that fact. New Terra was rebuilt in 4 months, not 6. The colonists returned to find a world more beautiful and habitable than they had ever imagined possible. When asked about the reconstruction, human engineers simply smiled and said, "We had some spare time." The galaxy learned to fear that smile.